Let's Talk OCW definitely has the thumbs up in my book.
Nice. Because a lot of the things that I want to talk about usually exist, well, happened in the past. Like I like to look at the past and compare it
Mhm.
to the what's currently happening and stuff. And I think that that's almost necessary because there's an awful lot of people who haven't really peered back into the past to take a look at like all the stuff that's there, and there's so much there just from like reading storylines and seeing what's been
Right.
successful in the past to like I really like the history project because I like looking back and seeing the data and kind of comparing those things, and you can see drastic differences that existed from pre 2018 to post 2018. And for me, that's fun, but I also need somebody who's much more, probably, I think the terminology is like in tune, like somebody who's a little bit more in tune with everything that's happening within OCW right now, so that's more, approachable for somebody who's brand new to this, because
Right.
otherwise it wouldn't work. So that's ultimately why I wanted to create what I'm trying to create here. And I didn't really talk about why I created in the last podcast, which hopefully comes out soonish, before this, of course. But like we got together and we put together like this list of things like, let's talk about some stuff from the past. Let's talk about some stuff that's happening right now, and kind of intermix it to compare it. And I really like that idea. That got me really excited.
Mhm.
So I did go through, last week, got through quite a bit. I've updated that on that sheet and everything. Just kind of for, heads up, just want to hear your opinion on it before we move on to mostly you in this show. I talked about, some notable world title runs before 2018. I talked about Leon's third reign being like the record of 7 defenses at the time. Parker Stevens going over 200 days. He won in the first chamber. I actually said 2,000 days last week when I did this, so stupid on me. And then we got to most impressive title run, and this is where I wanted to hear your opinion because you have a different one.
Mhm.
I said that Cassidy Hayes' first OCW title run over 300 days, setting a modern day record for defenses at 9, and defended in the chamber with a few other multi-man matches. That was the most impressive.
Right.
But you picked something different. So, did you pick something different because it's like, oh, well, I can't talk about the same thing? Or is it something that you think I'm overstating?
A little bit of neither. It's kind of like how I look at it. I wasn't here for Cassidy's first OCW title run, so like I didn't really get to experience Cassidy as a dominant champion. The only time I've ever really seen Cass as a champion was when he obviously stole the CCW title from Rex at Turmoil, and that flip-flopped here and there. And he didn't really hold it for that long, whereas Quartz, the Jiu-Jitsu Quartz world title run, that was the first glimpse of a very dominant world champion, in the OCW world title scene for me. So that's why I was like, nah, like that's what comes to my mind when dominant world title reigns are brought up.
Okay, so you're talking about his one and only OCW reign, the 371.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I remember correctly, he defeated Russ Cole, Chill Factor, 2021, and then he lost it to H2O.
18?
17, right? 17?
I think it might have been 17, yeah.
Okay. So, obviously, that went on for over a year.
Right.
This is where things get tricky because, like, the way that people measure the title defenses, one person says that, breaks should count. Some people say breaks shouldn't count.
I don't believe in that.
And I know you've been a big naysayer of like, hey, no, that doesn't make any sense. Like, you should count the breaks as well. So
Right.
Quartz held it for 371 days. He defended it 7 times. I've been going back and collecting like who people defended against and stuff, and I have the defenses for Cassidy Hayes' title run, but I do not have the defenses for Quartz's title run. By any chance, do you recall like who he faced during that time frame?
I remember a good chunk of them. So he won it, as you said, at Chill Factor. His first defense was the instant rematch against Rust. This was the match where if Quartz were to win, excuse me. No matter what happened at this match, after this match, they were not allowed to be in the same ring with one another for up to a year. So you got that where he successfully defended against Rust in his first one, and then Road to Glory 2021, he defended against AC Cobra, where he kind of pulled Cobra up by the jock straps, made him kind of look like a main event player, a real main player. Resolution Night 2, he defended against Nate and Cassidy. Consequence 2021, he absolutely fucking slaughtered K. D'Angelo. Then
I feel like there's a. You didn't say Bobby Minio yet, have you?
Bobby Minio is side. Yeah, I know you were waiting on that. Bobby Minio, I'm almost certain was side. Night 2, is it? Because Bobby returned to face Quartz, because that's kind of the thing where people could kind of argue the Quartz world title reign, because at the time his level of competition may not have been the grandest. Did he actually? Am I missing this? Where did he not defend outside?
Well, I'm looking back at it, and this was something that Jay was talking about just a few days ago. Actually, and you were there actually for this.
Nope. Yep. He did.
But he was talking about like how the champions are always defending on pay-per-views, and yet there must have been some sort of alternation, or he wasn't defending on every pay-per-view because he got the 7 defenses over the course of more than a year.
Yes. There was times where Quartz did not always defend. He got past. So yeah, you're talking. Clash was 1, Road to Glory is 2, Lucian is 3, Consequence is 4, Side is 5, and then he defended at Endgames 2021, which was against Harvey. Then we went into the S Cup, and after the S Cup, we then had. Did he have a? That's 6. I'm getting. Are we sure he defended 7 times? There has to be one that I missed then, because did he have a TV defense? Oh, right. I think he defended it. He defended the title against Harvey on TV as well, but it ended in a whatchamacall, kind of like a count out, because they were just beating the fuck out of one another. And then because those two fought all night long, I'm almost certain by that. So I think that's the case. I gotta find this, because now you got my brain going, because that's 6. Like, he defended it on the pay-per-view. Every pay-per-view Quartz was world champ, he defended it. But I just.
Well, I'm trying to think back to 2001 or 2021 as well, and trying to think like, what was the pay-per-view schedule like? Because the pay-per-view schedule did change relatively recently in terms of the amount of pay-per-views that we have and the frequency of them. So yeah. I'm trying to remember when that changed. I can't recall if that changed before I had left, or if it hadn't changed until like.
That didn't change until 22.
Okay.
Yeah, that didn't change until then, because 22 came out, and it changed everything.
Right. Well, all things aside, like, there is an agreement point that I have with you in terms of Quartz, because ever since Quartz held that OCW title, it's been a lot more, it's been passed around a lot more. It jumped to H2O, and then you defeated H2O, and then H2O again, and then H2O would have had the longest reign between Quartz and your current reign today, and that's only at 230. There's been a lot of, just double-digit numbers instead of getting into the triple digits, which you're currently at now. But we've also seen, Sheldon hold it for 48 days. You held it for 49 days. Max held it for 43 days. So Oh, right. 116 days. I actually wanted to ask you about that one as well
Hmm.
because it's 116 days. Russ mentioned that there's two defenses. I have
It's
one
only one.
defense.
Yeah, it's only
Okay.
one.
Okay, so that 116 days, I don't know what happened in between that because that was right around the time that I was just officially getting back, I think.
That just goes to show the length in between pay-per-views, because Aries won the title at Side, and then he, I want to say, because yeah, what, that was Side 2023, right? Hang on, I'm
That
almost
he
certain.
that he won it at?
Yeah, Side
Yeah,
20.
yeah,
Was
side.
it Side 23?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he won it at Side 23, and then he went and defended it Hard Target 23, and then he wasn't going to defend up until Anniversary 19, which at that point obviously he had left, so he did not. But yeah, no, he only defended it once. Then there was Rust in between them, because it was Quartz, Harvey, me, Harvey, Rust, Sheldon, Aries, me, Max, me.
Righto. Okay. So one of the things that, because I want to like circle back to Quartz's reign and stuff, you were mentioning like how he had some very fresh faces when it came to the world title. AC Cobra being involved,
Mm-hmm.
Bobby Nino coming back and stuff. Those were
Mm-hmm.
things that I really liked about that reign as well.
Mm-hmm.
I always enjoy it when there's a chance to see new people kind of getting a shot at the world title. And Bobby Nino was always like that person never quite got to the top. And then AC Cobra, I think there's been enough people that have kind of like mentioned him offhandedly to say he
Mm-hmm.
was never at the top of the card, but his
Ever.
involvement with it was very refreshing. And I
Yes.
really do like that about what Quartz did because he did mix it in too. Obviously H2O, and then KD's kind of always been. Yeah, and to me, it's actually really curious that KD has never held the world title because he's challenged a lot of people. He has challenged a ton of people for this. I know he's challenged Cass plenty, or at least two times in his reign.
Mm-hmm.
I know he challenged Quartz. I feel like he's challenged H2O. I mean, the fact that he's not a champion or hasn't been a champion in the past is kind of like, wow, really? I feel like he has gone up against so many OCW champions.
Well, you don't earn the nickname the Gatekeeper, by winning world titles. You're the gatekeeper because the people usually beat you. You're that step ahead, and you're about to be a world champion. And I mean, I think if you look back at it as well, on the other side, all of those guys fought KD before they were world champions, and they all beat them.
Right,
They
right.
they all beat KD. So it's like it just ties hand in hand with some. You need those people. You need those stepping stones in a sense.
Right. But he does give it like an air of legitimacy. Like you hear, oh, somebody fought KD. Oh shit, really? That really like solidifies that somebody fought KD. Okay, they are, in my eyes, a much more legitimate champion. Just hearing certain names, like there's certain names you hear. You hear somebody say they defended against H2. Oh, okay, they
Right.
obviously were involved. KD. Oh, great. That's awesome. That's good to hear that he was involved and that they were able to overcome that. Definitely helps solidify it. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I don't disagree with you that Quartz had a really freaking amazing title run. Probably because he was dominant. He was dominant during that time.
Yes, he was like your top heel. Like he was definitely, I think that's my one complaint with his world title reign is how it ended. I I've always been a rather vocal point on, I feel like Harvey is not a babyface.
Right.
Harvey, we've seen time and time again, he kind of is wishy-washy with his alignment. Like he's kind of like the Big Show, where one minute he's a good guy, the next minute he's a bad guy, just in like on how his hair is. Like one minute this dude has a crazy beard and super long hair, the next minute his beard's shaved and he has a shaven head. Then the next week his hair's changed again. So the ending of Quartz's title reign was definitely one. I wish they did not go back on that. I wish that it would have been a different challenger for him at Anniversary 17. While, I obviously benefited because I, fought Harvey and won after that, I would, even if it changed everything, I would stand by it today. And I would have rather seen, ironically enough, if we're able to play kind of like hypothetical fantasy booker, I would have gotten the whatchamacallit, the Nate Ortiz versus Quartz 1-on-1. Like, that would have been, like, obviously I know we would have lost the Doc versus Nate Ortiz match, but I would sacrifice that and
Okay.
have gotten that.
Okay, so hypothetically speaking, you definitely want to see a different ending to it, and that's fair.
Yes.
So that kind of leaves one of the other things. Like, there's so many things that we have just said that we're going to talk about here, and one of them was like the biggest blunders in OCW.
Yes.
So it kind of fits naturally, the idea that, like, oh, creatively this is what I wish would have happened, but that's OCW. Obviously, there's limitations to what creativity can provide for you.
Right.
So, from the perspective of biggest blunders in OCW, I'm guessing you're probably not going to say what you just said with, like, how the Quartz title run ended. But out of curiosity, where would that be? Like, how disappointing was that to you within the perspective of biggest blunders?
Definitely top 3 in my mind, for sure. Top 3. Like, honestly, if I had to do it, it'd be top 2. Mark Reese kind of fumbling his momentum and going for a mid-card championship was number 1, and then how that Jiu-Jitsu Quartz title reign ended for sure would be number 2.
Okay, that's a lot more than I thought you would say, because usually I don't get too upset about, like, how title reigns end and stuff, because there is this, like I said, there's the air of unpredictability, right. And especially in these games, you can lose at any time. I mean, imagine what people would be saying if I had lost the horse when I was on my.
Oh my god!
I know, right?
That would have been fucking. Now that would have been insane. I don't know if, I guess in hindsight, Horse did not have the fanfare and admiration that he has now that he did back then. So I do think that would have probably been an extreme fucking blunder if you would have lost that match. But, I think that's kind of like another thing where on the flip side, you can compliment him because, there's one of the things where people sit there and, he didn't take the cheap way out, like, obviously he could have tapped you out, but he was like, no, like, I'm not going to do that in this type of situation.
Right. And I think a lot of people look at that and say, like, kudos to you.
Yes.
But I also think, hindsight being what it is, I think he didn't even look back with, like, regret about it. He just looks back and says, it didn't happen. And I think he's actually been happier for the fact that it didn't happen. He does not seem very title oriented at all.
No. There's a different level of grind. You know what I mean? I think especially back then, that's really where it started, where the production rate for being a world champion really, really leveled up. And, if you were a world champion, you were meant to bring out your A game, because, it's like if you're expected to be treated like the top guy, you need to be and act like a top guy in terms of how you produce your content. Not to say that Horse can't do the production. I just don't think Horse would want to do the production on the level that a world champion is required to do the production.
Right. I think I always kind of look at it like, in order to, in order to do it, you have to be at least average in every regard to like OCW. You have to be an average writer at the very least. Got to be average at video production. You got to be at least average in the ring. But you don't want to be. You want to at least have a couple of categories where you're average. You're not particularly great. I'm not particularly great at video, but there has to be other. That was rude. I said there was going to be a gremlin that showed up in the next week, and I was not wrong.
Are we live, or am I just giving this all for free right now? Like, are we just chit-chatting?
You're totally live.
Cool. All right, well, I just had to make sure there wasn't an intro. There was no really professionalism going on. So it's
I'm not a professional at all.
Well, dude, it's like, let's talk OCW. Welcome back, folks. It's your boy Brian. Will, you know what I'm saying? Like, come on, man. Where's the intro?
It's way too late to do that. Obviously, I can cut it and then do the whole, hey, welcome to Let's Talk OCW here with the Gremlin, Brian Williams here. But I just started recording. So yeah, you've been talking and this has been recording this entire time. You're doing something very unprofessional right now. You should like poke me in the side with like a message. But now you completely derailed this entire topic, and people are looking at me like I'm an idiot. But it's okay.
That's what they should expect when it comes to anything OCW related. You just got to pivot, as the fucking kids say.
Yeah. Okay. I've completely forgot what we're talking about, but I know that you said Mark Reese choosing to go after a mid-card title after that tag reign. You said that was high up on your list of biggest blunders.
Yes.
And that was not something that I can recall all that much, so you got to give me more context here.
So I think it's one of those things where you got to like tie in parts from the past into now. So like obviously Lucha Country had broken up at I think it was Resolution 16, where El Parca betrayed Mark Reese after they had just defended the OCW Tag Championships. Actually, no, not 16. I'm sorry, Resolution 15. And you know they broken up, and Parker betrayed them. You build into Consequence 2021, where you got to decide who is going to be the actual tag champs, like who is gonna hold this title legitimately. Which El Parca DQ'd himself and ended up giving the title to Reese in a sense, and then that's how we got the formation of Puro Country, to where Mark Reese, now mind you, as you know, and as I've said, I don't know if it was mentioned beforehand, I don't know when we've actually truly started because this guy is not professional, but I don't care about this break thing. There's no such thing as a break in professional wrestling and in title reigns. Title reigns didn't stop in the COVID era. I don't give a shit about the narrative on that. So, you have Mark Reese essentially being this tag champion, all 370 days, with Lucha Country. And then from, Resolution 15 all the way into, I think it was season 16. Yeah, I think it was season 16 where Turmoil 273, you finally get Sanctum versus Puro Country, where Sanctum obviously would end up beating Puro Country, and the reign was a 530-day reign, if I remember it off the back of my head correctly. Which obviously you're the numbers guy and you have the championship stats, but I believe that is the longest reign in OCW history. So it's like you have that, and then at the time, I will be completely transparent, the world title scenes were rather clogged up. This is when 22 first was coming out, and we were seeing quite a lot of the same people hovering in and out, specifically around the CCW scene. That was when you had Tony versus Rust. I think they did it twice. Quartz obviously got involved, and then Doc got involved for Resolution 16, where we seen the last pillar standing, or the four pillars match. And then Quartz began the Ness reign, where he started doing his stuff. And then obviously Parka was the world champ. He ended up losing it to Harvey, and just the world title scenes were really kind of clogged, where Reese couldn't really find himself in these title matches, which that's a different opinion, neither here nor there. But I would have just liked if he would have avoided altogether going for a mid card championship, because it's like, all right, you already were a mid card champ when you were a tag champ. I want to see you take that next legit step and be a world champ, which we didn't get, and that really really bummed me out.
Okay. So what I think you're referring to is Quartz. Quartz won in July 10th. I don't have the date list or the event listed here, but
Right.
then Rex won it, and then Quartz won it, and then Rex won it. So from July 2022 to May 2023, it was those two going back and forth with each other. Now, I couldn't tell you what was happening in between, and those guys just found themselves in that position, because obviously that was the time when I was gone.
Yes.
So I don't have any context for that. I am aware of the Four Pillars match.
Yes.
And I'm aware that Quartz took it off of Tony, but then that entire process of going back and forth for almost a year is not something I have any awareness of whatsoever.
Right. So you obviously Tony won the title from B17, and this is kind of when, like, at this part in the 19 lifespan, I think we were spacing out our pay-per-views a little bit more. So Tony defended the title at Anniversary 17 against Jacob Trance, and then into Chaos Theory, we got him versus Rust, and then we got, the Four Pillar match. So before that, because, the whole objective was Rust was essentially trying to do like this whole CM Punk thing where he's like, oh, my contract's going to end. I'm going to run away with the CCW title. He failed completely and miserably. And we, as you said, we got Quartz as the victor out of that. That's when him and Cassidy started exchanging, going at it with one another. Where I think, if I remember correctly, when it was at Side 22, it was Quartz versus Cass, and I'm almost certain that if Quartz won the match, which obviously he did, Cass was no longer ever allowed to challenge for the CCW title. And then after that, we had Don't Come to New York, where we had Tony versus H2O for the OCW World Championship. And this is kind of one of those times where I was trying to tell Jay, like, this is where we did not have the world title. Every pay-per-view didn't have the world champion on it in like defending the actual title, because at Don't Come to New York, that was when CQC versus Cassianity happened. So, it's like there were some small detours where, Quartz was really, he was being the big frog, and he was fighting off Cassianity. But yeah, what was that? Then, oh no, you know what? I got my dates mixed up. It wasn't Side, it was Clash 22, where Quartz and Cass had their final one-on-one match. And that was the match that if Cass lost there, he could not challenge for the title. And then obviously, also at that pay-per-view, we had Colin Locke get his one and only world title attempt versus H2O, where he ended up unsuccessful as well.
I did not know that. I did not know Colin Locke ever got a world title opportunity.
Yeah.
Did not know that.
Yeah, Max, the two new names in the entire Hell Harvey world title reign were Max and Colin. After that, he kind of just went back to the well with guys that he had prior history with, Tony, Rust, and then obviously that was, funnily enough, at Anniversary 18 was one of the rare pay-per-views where I think every single world championship changed hands, because I know Rust beat Harvey, obviously Rex beat Quartz, and then there was Emp versus Harry Etiquette, and I'm pretty certain Emp beat her there as well.
Let's see. Let me see. Harry Etiquette. What year would that have been? That's 22?
That's, yeah, 23, June 23.
It's not listed. No, Harry. It has Harry listed.
Maybe
and
Harry
then
won. I might be putting some shade on her name unintentionally.
maybe because the next listing is another person you're put shade on. You don't have to though. You don't have to. It would be Jasmine.
I mean, they can go fuck themselves for all it's
Okay, we're gonna move on. So, anyways, one of the other. Oh shit! It doesn't get any better because we're still in the biggest blunders category. Oh shit!
That's not even a blunder. That's
No,
just,
no.
anyways.
No, hey, professionalism.
Yeah, well, I don't have it when it comes to that individual, but I care about OCW more than to pull a Trey Golden and make it about that. So keep going as we were.
Right. Unfortunately, now you have to tell me why Joe Deaver's on this list.
So Joe Deaver, and going back, because you love to make things with the past. Joe Deaver gives me very Ty Sparks vibes because Joe Deaver had, just like Ty Sparks, he had a lot of people really pulling the weight for him, and he just, whether it was by negligence or being a goof in kinder terms, or laziness, whatever, he did not reach his full potential. And some of those things I will completely say all of them are not his fault. Like, there was at one point where him and Chris Green were feuding, which was very evident. Like, that was the feud, and I loved it. And we didn't really get a proper blow off. Like, we didn't get the blow off until I think actually this year, or maybe end of 2023. And it was just very disappointing because it was not Chris Green when he was in Christianity. It was not it was not the heel Chris Green. It was the Chris Green that everyone, really knows. And then, even after that, Joe had the reunion with Chris Green. Joe had the story with Quartz and Harvey. And it really just seems like Joe constantly got in his way one way or another. And it's just really disappointing because I think creatively, Joe knows what he wants to do and knows what he wants to see the character get done, but the execution of it is just abysmal.
You say abysmal because of content, looks, the matches, like the way that the person acts within Discord? Like, is it a combination of everything for you?
Yes, yeah, it's absolutely a combination of everything. I think his one of his main saving graces is probably his matches when he's not being a gremlin. And I'm not gonna take the easy jab because it's been used to death at this point. But I don't like his look. Like, his attire is not it for me. It's a real big, like, color bomb in the face, which, hey, if you're trying to be a babyface, I will applaud that. But the content's just not there, man. It's just not there for me. I don't really know what to expect out of Joe Deaver. I don't really know what to take from Joe Deaver at this point. Like, it just seems like at this moment in time, he kind of just is okay with being a Discord meme and saying he's in catering.
Okay. So the person that because I like I said, I kind of stay away from like the idea of creative kayfabe blunders and stuff because I've been part of them too. Like, I've made terrible choices, and I'm gonna it's gonna happen.
For sure.
The person that I wanted to talk about, because I actually started to develop a like for this person, but they still just never kind of put it together. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you remember this person. It was Jet Draven.
Oh, of course I remember Jet.
Okay. I don't know what your relationship was with him, but when he came in, it was very evident very quickly that he was very good mechanically at the game. And because of that, he kind of built up this aura around him. Mm-hmm. But the character, the writing, obviously before 2018, really no video work to be spoken of. Right. And around 2017, there was a Hoot Watch where they kind of They watched his match. They tore it apart. He got criticism, rightfully so, for moonwalking, poor ethics, and then also in 2017, like he was accused of a false splits.
Right.
Okay? So he was found guilty. He had a 2-week suspension, but it's not like he disappeared after that. He was around. The problem is when I think back to what he did between those points, I can never really recall what he was doing. I can only start recalling him around 2020 again, and I was like going back through the forums looking for it, and I'm like Riot 548, Quartz is praising him. And I'm looking at, okay, why was Quartz praising him? And then I remembered, this is when he started going that pariah of OCW character. And that character I really, really liked. And he seemed to be on the right footing. There wasn't too much for content, like the character didn't speak much, but he was being presented as like this almost Brock Lesnar-esque character. And I really dug it. I really liked it. And then I went looking to see where it ended, and I couldn't find anything. So what I almost feel like what happened is that it just stopped. Like he just stopped. So I couldn't find anything for a definitive ending. And I was wondering, am I remembering that right? Did he continue? Was he still around after I left, or is 2020 like the only time? Like, am I right? 2020, it just ended.
If even that, to be honest with you, basically my experience with Jet was it was very minor, because in all actuality, I think I had 2 matches with him. I had a Fatal 4-Way match right after I had lost to Rex for the CCW Championship, where I became the #1 contender to Thomas Archer's international title. And then right after I won the international title, I eventually down the road I went and I faced Jet, and I lost. That was the one time where I acted super out of character, because I just legitimately was super upset with how he played, even though ironically enough he was just kind of ahead of the curve. And as you said, he was very mechanically sound. Like, the dude was really ahead of the game than a lot of people. I mean, it's kind of interesting because you're sitting there and you're praising the pariah character, whereas for me, I wasn't in love with it because it was just Dennis Dillinger doing, I'm sure if he ever hears this, he'll probably disagree with it. I'm sure I'm not recalling all of it exactly 100%, but Jet was with Dennis Dillinger, so Dillinger was his mouthpiece. There was at a point where Jet was going to get involved with the international title match between Isu and El Parka, but I remember the forces that be luckily were like, no, we'll just let those two do their match. And then really after that, he kind of fizzled out. Like, he had some matches here and there. He didn't really do any feuds, and I think his actual last match in OCW was him versus Danny Watts, where he lost in quite dramatic style, and then was really just he never came back.
Okay. Well, it wasn't just the character. Like, I really liked the presentation, the very simple. When I picture it, I see like these black cargo pants.
Yes.
Maybe I'm misremembering, like black cargo pants and nothing else.
He had a shirt. He had like a shirt. Yeah, he had very simple merch, very simple gear, which I think at the time also where he benefited from is that you could tell Jet, I'm almost certain, had a face scan, and he molded the face scan, and like that is what really made the character pop, was how his character legitimately looked, his entrance, his song was a really nice song. But it was black cargo pants, a black shirt with I think like a white logo on it, and then like I think his shoes or boots were even white, black as well, excuse me.
Yeah. And I don't know why that stands out to me as something that I really liked, but it is something that I can recall and I think of in a positive sense. Like a few days ago, somebody was saying, if you write it once, it's not going to be remembered, but if you write it multiple times, it will get remembered eventually, and then it just becomes the lasting impression, or if you do it in a video, whatever. So the lasting impression that I have with him is his appearance with that character. And like, I can't remember much about the content per se, but I also remember him playing a very cool, calculating person within the ring, and that all just kind of really ties together very well. So I look back on the final, like, maybe year of his run as being something that I really liked, but obviously I have him in the biggest blunders because it just stands out to me as things seem to have been coming together, but it never got there.
Yeah.
And he's one of those biggest what ifs in OCW. You know, if we talk about what ifs, there's so many you can go through. You know, the horse beating bingo thing was mentioned, but Jed Draven, you know, kind of getting everything put together is one of the biggest what ifs for me.
I can agree with that.
But for me personally, though, it would have been very easy to talk about people that are currently in OCW and say, you know, blunder, not doing what they're supposed to be doing. But even like Joe Deaver, there's time. There's no reason not to think that there's not time for him to readdress the situation and find momentum again. And that could be said for a couple of people that might, you know, automatically jump to your mind for not doing what you would want them to be doing. Like, they're not building. Obviously, like, people like Trey would be a prime example. He's somebody who is often talking about, like, oh, this didn't happen, this has happened, it's just not working for me, and there's always question marks around it. I don't see that as a blunder. I don't see that as a disappointment, because to me, he's here, he's asking questions. There has to be a sense of desire to improve if such questions are being asked.
I disagree.
Why?
I think in terms of Trey, you know, because I feel like for a long time this was, you know, we kind of seen it with Amart, where Amart would always pop up from time to time talking about his moveset, talking about how, oh, I'm gonna get cleared eventually, and oh, I wanna make a comeback, and oh, this and oh, that. And I think with Trey, it's, you know, we've already seen Trey show whether he, you know, was making his opponent / feud partner's life easy when he was doing it or not. Trey can do OCW. Trey has done OCW. The guy had a long Pride Championship reign. He main evented Resolution. He fought for the world title multiple times. He's fought for other titles multiple times. So it's like when I see, you know, the questions or the you know, the conversations, a lot of the times it's more nostalgia fueled. It's just like, oh, let's just talk about when I was here, when I was actively a part of OCW, and when I was, you know, doing what I was doing. And that's kind of why I don't mind you wanting to look back at the past, but it's why, like, I most of the time will not, because I feel like right now, in the state of OCW and with everyone that's still in OCW, I want to focus on those people because they are actively here. They are the ones actively putting their nose to the grindstone, doing what they need to do. Although, yes, I do sit there and say, you know, there's so much room for so many people to move up. I will still give flowers where they are due by, you know, commending those people and talking about those people. I just think, especially lately, and, you know, you can maybe you'll disagree, maybe you'll agree with me. I just feel like as of late, it feels like discussion, as ironic as it has been, because, you know, I know you and I have been here where people have said this time and time again, but it does feel like discussion is at a rather all-time low. You know, it feels like, oh, here's the shows, and, you know, I used to sit there and say, oh, you know, at least you're getting Discord discussion, but it really doesn't even feel like we're getting all that much of that nowadays either. Like, you know, you'll see the occasional Emp will pop in Discord, you know, I assume when she's either watching the show or when she has time to think about it, and, you know, she'll drop her thoughts on the show. You'll get Pew, who kind of, you know, says some things here and there, but, you know, and then obviously you got Jim when he has time. But I feel like outside of like the Twitch chat when the show was going on, the discussion has been really, really not there lately.
Right. I don't think you're wrong, but also this is kind of a historical trend. OCW is always chasing the feedback. It really is. So when the forums were a thing, it was you're writing a review, okay,
Right.
and then it became okay, just give us 5 things, like just smaller tidbits of information to focus in on. And then when Discord came around, okay, the forums are dying, the chat board on that is dying, and it did. And so it was okay, we'll give feedback within here, but you should still review if you can at some point.
Right.
And then when it moved over to Twitch and have the live stream going where people can give feedback, and then the viewing parties becoming more prominent, every time something new kind of comes around, the feedback kind of migrates to a different format or into a different place. And we're kind of in that situation now, although there's not necessarily something new for us to give feedback to or through. It's the fact that sadly the number of people that go into like the viewing parties, they have the conversations, and then those conversations, they happen there, and they never then come out to the to the forum or to the Discord chat itself. And that's what happened after the last Turmoil, or after the last Riot. I came in there, and I was talking. I'm like, hey, this is just what's going on, how are people reacting to things. And a good conversation was happening, but that conversation will never make it past the after show discussion, which is kind of where discussion seems to take place the most often nowadays.
For sure.
And I guess the question is that a problem? I think it is. I think it's a problem. Not because people are choosing to have the conversations there. I think it's a problem because the feedback stays within the limited loop, right? If you're not talking with people, you're not improving. If you're not hearing feedback, you're not improving. So that was a big reason why I was always I used to be the gremlin that's like, why aren't you doing reviews? Why aren't you doing reviews? You should be giving reviews. And eventually it just became too much. It's like people aren't giving reviews in the format that I was used to, and that kind of hurt for me. So what was the feedback loop that you were most familiar with that you kind of wish was still there?
So I also had experience with the forum reviews, whether that be people doing full show reviews or taking bits and bobs that they want to talk about. So I had that. I also had where I remember when after the show, usually right after the show, the show discussion in Discord, that channel would be blowing up with numerous people just talking about what's going on and what's happening. And obviously you had the Twitch and then the voice chat after the show as well. But I think for me, I just want to see it come back in a form of, because I know Jay really likes having it be kind of permanent. So I know that's why he likes seeing it on the forum. So then that way, using you, for example, as my hypothetical, it's oh, Adam put on Riot 407. Hey, Joe Deaver, your attire is really goofy and your segment was really nice, but I really just couldn't get over the fact that your attire was super goofy. Maybe you should look into that and wear normal clothing during segments so people aren't distracted by how you look, And then it's okay, boom, it's there. That's not going anywhere unless you or Jay or an admin on the site go out of their way to go and delete that. And I would like to see more forum discussion in general. I would just like to see it more because it's really non-existent now. You'll mostly get maybe 1 to 2 people who say some things on the forum, and that's it. And I think, as Jay says, KISS, keep it simple. Just, you don't have to do the 3, 2, 1 thing. Just take 2 things that you like from the show, just write about it, and then that can give people the opportunity to, either spin off of what someone else said or just feel appreciated that maybe you're talking about their stuff. I feel like that's another layer of OCW at certain times that truthfully does get neglected on, it's like we are a very unique group of individuals who are all across the world. All of us have our own unique lives. We all have our own issues outside of Discord and, doing the matches. And the fact that we are able to make these shows week in and week out with written content, voiced promo content, non-voiced content, the stuff that is even above that where, you're seeing Clickbait do wild ads, you're seeing Emp go on an existential crisis, you're seeing Dragana's anime universe. I just think no matter who you are, and I'm sure you'll also understand this, but as much as hard-assery as there is in OCW, we're all humans, man. Humans are social creatures. They want to feel good. They want to get compliments. And it's like, fuck, man, we're not getting paid to do this stuff. So it's like, it's really not going to kill you to sit there and compliment people that you're sharing into a hobby with.
But, so I'll just play devil's advocate because, for the sake of it, so the way that our shows are formatted now, there's a much more immediate impact with the visual. You're watching it, you're reacting to it almost immediately. When the reviews were much more prominent, they were prominent because you'd see the matches, but then you'd have to go and read for more content to be able to understand everything that's happening. And I'm not arguing for or against it, but what I'm saying is that people were driven to the source to get all the content, to get all the know of what's happening with any storyline whatsoever. You'd have to go and read about it. Now, plenty of storylines pretty much take place exclusively within video format, or at least 80% of it takes place within video format. And people comment on Twitch, okay, that's commenting. People react in Discord, okay, that's commenting, but it's not lasting because it doesn't need to be. It's more of an immediate feedback loop brought on by the fact that you're watching the video, it's taking place. You don't have to actually go to the site, you don't have to read it. And maybe there's an element of that as well. And you've kind of been outspoken about you know, champions have to produce video. They have to be able to produce video. But at the same time, the writing is the foundation of OCW, in my opinion. So that's where I kind of get a little caught up in. Like, I would like to see more writing. The fact that we're seeing less writing kind of sticks out to me as maybe a reason for why we don't get as much feedback anymore, just because of the way that we interact with content has completely changed.
So, to play devil's advocate to your devil's advocate, I think when you're doing your examples of like in the Twitch chat and in the Discord, I'm going to specifically pluck out the Discord. And now this is by no means a shot at the Discord and at the voice chat, but I think over the years, the Discord voice chats have significantly dropped off in terms of discussion. Like last night, well, I mean, whenever we do this, but for the last Riot, when you and I were in there and, there was a bunch of people discussing, that is not the norm nowadays. I feel like there are a lot of key figures that led the Discord discussion that no longer, for whatever reason, and it's by no means am I blaming anybody, because I understand that life is fucky and things happen. But it's like there are some very key figures that used to be in the voice chats that no longer are. So the voice chat discussion is not really as prominent as it used to be. Onto your written thing though. Now this one, I don't really know if you were here when it started, but I kind of look at this as a meme gone wrong. Because, there was, select little gremlins that would sit there and be like, oh, who reads? Like, ew, I'm not here to read. And I think in a way that kind of got taken a bit seriously. And you're starting to notice, as you said, you're starting to notice this lack of written content. But also, on the other hand, I think And mind you, like right now, if we want to totally play ball, I'm actually kind of part of the problem, because I did my little review of just the written stuff, and I have not done my review on, I'm not the written, excuse me, the video stuff, and not on the written. And that is in a sense feeding into this issue where people are really only acknowledging the video part of OCW, where you're right, the writing was the foundation. Like before these, we were able to record more easily, and people were doing content, video content more easily. Writing was the lifeblood of OCW, and it's changing, but I still feel like there is room for more written content that has weight to it while also producing video content at the same time.
Right. So what I try to do is, like right now, the storyline was with Cass and Rex and Emp and everything. And I don't know, I would hope that this is the norm for everybody. But there's a schedule. It's okay, you're taking lead this week, I'm taking lead the next week, this person's taking lead the next week. And I really hope that's what happens, but honest to God, I've heard that there's been people who are like, no, I do most of the writing for it. Bash has kind of spoken up and said, you know what, I was doing a lot of the lead and stuff in this, which is fine because he's like leading people to do it, but eventually they have to be more comfortable and confident to do it on their own, right? So I hope that people take this and they like utilize this. You're working with somebody, you take the lead one week, the next person takes the lead the next week. That doesn't mean that you guys don't share ideas, but it does mean that you like, all right, you get you're taking care of the video work this week, okay? And then I'll take care of the video work the next week. And then, okay, you're going to do the writing, like lead in and stuff, and, give me the template for the week after that. Great, I'll take care of it the week after that. And I really hope more people do that. I really hope that that's happening with people, that they're sharing the load and stuff, because it can feel very overwhelming if you're trying to produce video content for every single week. And that's why I usually alternate. If I'm going to do a video, I want at least 2 weeks notice so that I can, so I can find the time to do it, and do it at semi-average at the very least. But, within that, next week rolls around, okay, and now it's a writing one. So that's kind of how I go about taking care of making sure that there is a mixture of video and writing, and then so that's not overwhelming. Somebody, if you're in a feud, person should be working hand in hand with you. They take the lead one week, you take the lead the next week. That is the way it should be, in my opinion.
I disagree. I don't think it should be that way. Just because I feel like now, so like, just from my perspective, I can give this from two different character points. When me and Max were feuding, me and Max were kind of exactly like what you were saying. We would plan our stuff, and we would do, week to week, like, oh, hey, like I'll cover this, you cover that. But when, let's say like when Joanna and Deborah were feuding, the entire feud was storyboarded start to finish. And then, sometimes Deborah would take charge on most of the video stuff. I would do, supporting stuff. I think when you have a balance where it's okay where it's okay inside of the feud, where neither person feels overwhelmed or taken advantage of. Now, mind you, that is up to the people just in the feud to, discuss and, make sure they set that boundary. However, in modern OCW, I do not feel like it's that. I do, as much as, it's kind of ironic because I wasn't really trying to come on here and be like a negative Nancy, but there are some points where just I would be lying if I didn't act, I do feel like there are some people, and Bash is one of them, where I feel like to a certain degree of detriment, he has handheld people so much that now that he's kind of taken the training wheels off, we've seen some of these people, either overall not do shit, or, their quality of content goes down because, oh, well, Bash was handling that content, or, player A was handling player B's stuff, and now it's like, well, this person, the feud's done and this person is gone. Prime example is Derek. When Grit and Glory was still, when Grit and Glory was a thing, Derek was around almost any time Grit and Glory was doing a segment or post match thing or whatever way, and that was because of me and Rye. Like, me and Rye would just include that character. Derek wasn't doing that. Derek was just literally a body, and that's something that needs to be stopped within OCW, because there are more than enough people who are capable of doing it, but I feel like to a degree it's weaponized negligence. You're just kind of, I'm so used to someone doing this for me, I'm just kind of gonna skirt by because they're doing it for me, and then when the time comes to do it yourself, they kind of fall flat on their face, which for the health of the community, that is not good.
No, I agree, it's not good at all. But I'm not really sure what you disagree with, because we essentially have the same opinions and same ideas, maybe just a different way of viewing the individual responsibilities.
That I disagree with that. My bad. I kind of went on a little bit of a tangent. I don't think it's clear cut where like if me and you were feuding, right? Like Bay versus Rory. Let's say, shit, man. Let's say we have 6 weeks, and
Okay.
let's say you come to me and you're like, hey. I'm kind of busy coming up, but let's say I'm okay and I'm good. But okay, you know what? Don't worry about it. I will handle week 1 through 3, and then we will regroup and we will see where each other is at. And then let's say, 3 weeks later, we reconvene and you're like, hey, I'm good. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm still good too. I can be a supporting factor for you. So you go and do the videos, and then whatever you need from me, I'll supply you. Let's say, we do that for a week or two. And then let's say the last week, I'm like, hey man, I'm really busy. I can't do anything. Can you handle this?
Okay.
And you're like,
Okay.
oh, totally. I think it's more fluid. It's not as clear cut as like, okay, week 1, you do this. Week 2, I do that.
Okay. That's fair. But in all fairness, that has happened in the past. Like, I've had
Right.
somebody say, I can't do this. And I'm like, okay, I'll take on this week and stuff. But I also think it creates, expectations, like expectations that you want to be met. And I think this, needs to be said. And we're kind of diverging away from, well, actually, I think we're at the end. No, we're at the end. So we're fine. Okay. So the point is, like, I like to set things in stone and say, hey, this week, one person, this week the next person, because I like people to have a clear expectation for myself, and I also like to put myself on a schedule. I'm like an incredibly regimented person, and I have to be. Like this talk, I'm enjoying this podcast more than I did last week, because I'm getting the opportunity to do it again relatively quickly. Okay, so like when I play the WWE games, if I take a 2-week break and then I play the game, I'm completely lost. Like, I've lost my timing, I've lost my spacing, it's not working for me. When I prepare for something for my job, I have to prepare for it. It is not something I can't show up and freewheel it. I have to say, I'm doing this, and then this, and then this. And I got like timers and stuff for me, because that's just how my brain works. I need to have a regimented set of expectations for me. So, like, all right, can you pick up the game and just play it? No problem.
Yeah.
I cannot do that. I cannot do it at all. It is my greatest weakness. It has to be like my greatest weakness. If I take 2 weeks off from this game and I show up and I play this game, like I forget so many things, like the spacing of certain things, like little patterns that I like to use. Okay, I go from good to terrible in 2 week span. I can't do it. So I have no idea how you're able to do it. Like, but your ability to do that probably translates well into the, okay, we don't need to have it so clear cut, this person 1 week, this person the next week, because you're able to be more flexible with that thought process, which is fine. I get it. But this is the, like, we're at the end. We don't have anything else that we're gonna absolutely talk about today. But is there any one thing that you would like to touch upon for maybe a couple minutes before we wrap it up here? Is there one thing?
I think I would just like to see, and I know it might sound a bit ironic, because it kind of goes, it's the antithesis, it's against OCW. But I think I'd like to see more positive encouragement, like I feel with certain things in the past of OCW, it was very like, hey, we're going to be really brutal on you in terms of critique, and you just got to deal with it. Whereas I would like to see, it's like, you don't have to like be like nice about it. You can just be like neutral. Like, if you see something and you're like, hey, like this really wasn't that great, just be like, hey man, I think you could improve on this by, trying this, and this. Like, prime example was, I said it to Jinx. I was like, hey, really, you did a good attempt at trying to do this video promo. Here are a couple things to just try and, add little bits and blobs that will improve it to where it helps the viewing experience, instead of just, having your guy standing there in a wall of text.
Okay. It's funny to say that, because I'm actually very much on the opposite end of that spectrum. I am because when I came into OCW, 2015, like, that was not the wild, wild west days or anything.
Right.
But that was still a time of, you do something wrong, we're going to tell you did something wrong. And we're going to, when people were giving feedback, it was very brutal. And so I grew up in that. Like, that's how I came up through OCW. So now I understand the point. Maybe that's not the best way to do things, but that's the way that, like, I survived. That's like the way that I got through, and that's the way that I learned a lot of stuff within OCW. So I understand the statement of like, well, one person getting through it doesn't, equate to it being a successful way to do things. But that is like how I was raised in OCW. I was told some really terrible things. I was called cancer by a terrible person, and like people would kind of join up with that, and they would get in on that and stuff, and then like feedback on the looks of my character, like it was rough. Like people were shredding the shit out of my stuff, and like that was a very motivating factor for me. Like, Tibby called me boring once, and he wasn't so nice about how he said boring, but he after a match said it was a boring match. You were boring. And like that was a very, oh my god, like I don't want to be thought of as boring. And I asked him about, I'm like, why am I boring? And he told me, characters look is boring, your promo style is boring, like your match type, like you're a gremlin, like you're just, he didn't say gremlin obviously, that's just kind of the word I'm associating with it, but he's like, you're just playing from too much of a, like, it's not a wrestling match, you're not having a wrestling match. So like that's three elements of OCW where I was told, you're boring, you're shit at this. And I was told that by a few different people. And that was motivation for me. Like, that was the change. I don't know when it happened. I think it was like, I got back from a ban in like 2017 or so. And it was, okay, why am I disliked? Here's why you're disliked. Oh, that's a lot of shit. That's a lot of really big things I gotta change. But that was how myself, H2O, Cast, Trey was around at that time, and I think Rust and Quartz kind of came in at the tail end of that process, and then obviously Doc Green and Tony as well. So that's where we came from. Do you absolutely hate that method? Like, are you 100% opposed to that? Like, do you see that and it might immediately like cringe? Me saying this, does that just make you say, oh my god, these old people, what the hell is wrong with them?
Well, I don't know, man. It's kind of crazy, because if you were asking Jay this, he would say I'm a part of the old people at this point with how long I've been here. I think it just ties into more of the fact that I think just in general, society is softer. Like you're not really, it's not really as gung-ho as, that time period. And even just like, shit, man, even just 5 years ago, like society has changed in so many ways. And I'm really not for that. And, it's like, I've had my own friends, and I've had people in OCW tell me at the same time, the kind of way that I want to do feedback is also a detriment, because it's like, oh hey, I'm trying to always be nice, and maybe some people it won't get through their head like that, but it's just, I feel like there's room for a middle ground between both. Like I think if you have someone where they are, not really listening, or they're just ignoring what you're trying to offer, then sure. If you want to whatchamacall be aggressive to try and get your point across, all right, sure. But I just feel like right now in the state of OCW, that's not the main way we should have it. I feel like we should be trying to curate and make a community where people can experiment and can try things and not immediately be hit with, oh, this is fucking awful, like what is wrong with you, or oh, your character is super boring, like why are you doing this? Unless, and mind you, this is yet again slippery slope, like unless it's deserved or it's warranted. But I feel like 9 out of 10 times it's really not. So I guess just off of your question, like, yeah, I do. I hate that.
Okay, that's fair. But I'm willing to bet that we can both agree on who the greatest offender of both of our styles in OCW is.
Who would that be?
On a count of 3, I'm going to say it. I'm thinking that you're going to say it too. 1, 2,
Okay.
3. Jacob Trance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Jamie.
Yeah, I think Jamie is absolutely the best and worst offender. I think it also just depends on how Jamie perceives you. And in a way, I also feel like Jake was kind of trying to follow. Well, I don't want to say follow. I think Jake was laying the groundwork for the kind of way that I am wanting to see it, because I remember when I rejoined OCW, I have maintained this from the get-go. Jake and Rust were the two people that were very pivotal for me in my first year and a half that I was back. And Jake, the only time I think I ever really had Jake get upset with me is when I accidentally blatantly spoiled something to him. And even then, he wasn't even mean or aggressive toward me. He was just like, yeah, you shouldn't say this because now I clearly know you lost this match. And I'm like, oh yeah, you right, that's my bad.
Okay I would get into what happened to me when I first came back and the people that helped me get back, but that would completely add on to this by it would almost double this essentially. And we don't need to have that because we are at the end. This has been, and here's your professionalism.
Oh, let's go.
This has been Let's Talk OCW, brought to you by Adam and Brian the Gremlin. Thank
Nice.
you for joining us. All right, see you later.
See you, dude.